Welcome to the Fantasy Football Playoffs. I hope you're still here watching and you are in the playoffs. Do us a huge favor. Drop a like. Make sure you're subscribed. We're trying to help you guys win your fantasy championships, and we are just 3 weeks away from being able to do that. Let's start with the Thursday night matchup here, Atlanta versus Tampa Bay. I will start Bijan Robinson in this matchup in the A tier, of course. Neutral matchups for both the wide receivers and the running backs here for Atlanta. Bijan's obviously the only start for me in the Falcons because Tyler Algier, I don't really feel comfortable starting right now. Darnell Mooney has also not been any good. I don't feel comfortable starting him. We've got both those guys in the H tier. For the Tampa Bay side, this one's a little bit murkier because we actually don't even have Mike Evans ranked at the moment. And we will rank him by the time we put this video out, so you'll see where we have him ranked because we just got news that Mike Evans potentially is going to play this week. And so here's what that does for this offense, in my opinion. First of all, neutral matchups for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. I'm starting Bucky and sitting the other two running backs here. Bucky's in the A tier for me. And then with Emeka Egbuka, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans, I'm going to say start Egbuka still. He has, regardless of who's played, still been getting 8+ targets per game, and I know that hasn't really coincided with fantasy production, but I do wonder if Mike Evans coming back will help Egbuka. And also, again, with the consistent target volume, I think eventually you're going to see him have a decent game. And I just don't feel like you can leave him out of your starting lineup, out of your flex spot in the playoffs of fantasy football. So I'm going to start Egbuka in the D tier. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, I'm going to say mez. Like, I really don't know which one of them is going to have the better game here. Mike Evans obviously coming off of an injury. Chris Godwin has been somewhat productive, had a double-digit game in his last time out. So we'll see. I don't really know which one of those second receivers will be productive. And in a game against Atlanta, I wouldn't be surprised if they got up early and just ran the ball, and Bucky had a good game here. And so, again, I feel comfortable starting Bucky in the A tier, Emeka Egbuka in the D tier, and then Chris Godwin and Mike Evans will probably put in the F tier, I think, together, maybe a little bit. I don't know. We'll have that sorted out, but you'll see it on the screen, so you'll know. Again, Bijan, Bucky, and Emeka Egbuka are the guys I'm starting in this game.
Yeah, and we got kind of another complicated matchup in Cleveland and Chicago. Very straightforward with the running backs or running back with Cleveland, Quinshon Judkins. I'll give you the okay there, green light. C tier, obviously has a very low floor because he's in a bad offense, but he's very talented, very good. He has touchdown upside every single week. In a neutral matchup, actually right smack in the middle in terms of what Chicago's run defense is allowed to running backs this year. Dylan Sampson ranks in the I tier. He's a sit. Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver one for Cleveland, really a Harold Fannin. Honestly, the one guy that I would want to start in Cleveland's passing game is Harold Fannin. Jerry Jeudy, I'm going to list as a meh in the F tier. He also has touchdown upside any given week, but he's not getting consistent enough target volume for me to feel really good about you starting him this week. Even with Shedeur Sanders on the up, Isaiah Bond not rankable, he's a sit. On the flip side, you've got Chicago's running backs, DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. We are going to give the upper hand to DeAndre Swift, whose snap share and usage is a little higher than Monangai's. I'll give you the green light there. He's a start. Kyle Monangai is a pretty comfortable meh. If you have to flex Kyle Monangai, then go for it. But you do want to avoid committee backfields when you can help it. He will be in the D tier. This is a neutral matchup in terms of fantasy production allowed of recent for Cleveland's run defense. And then for the wide receivers, DJ Moore, the top option there. Maybe Luther Burden, honestly, is a top option with no Rome Odunze. This is assuming Rome Odunze doesn't play. If he does play, this kind of shakes it up where you don't really feel good about starting any of these guys. But I'm currently going to list DJ Moore in the F tier with Luther Burden also in the F tier, both of them as mez. Luther Burden's been getting more target volume, less snap share. DJ Moore, again, on the field more, but less target volume. So which one do you want to go with? And again, Cleveland's allowed the 6th least amount of fantasy points to wide receivers of recent, so don't feel great about any of those guys. The running backs in Chicago's offense are really who you want to go for.
All right, the Baltimore and Cincinnati game here, division game, obviously. For the Ravens first, Derrick Henry, all green lights across the board. A tier for us, must start this week. Not Rasheen Ali or any of those guys. Zay Flowers in the C tier, I am going to say to start him. He's consistent. You know what he's going to get, and that high floor option in your flex spot's not bad during the playoffs. Rashad Bateman, I would say probably sit for Bateman. Bateman's been so hit or miss recently that I don't think it's worth starting him. In terms of the matchup, obviously it could be a higher scoring game, but his last really 7 games here, 0-1, 7-9, 4-0-4. So he's a sit for us. Don't feel super comfortable starting him at all. And then going to the Cincinnati side here, neutral matchups for both the running backs and the wide receivers. You're going to start the ones in this matchup. Chase Brown in the A tier, Jamar Chase in the S tier. P. Ryan, Yoshi Voss, we're not starting. We're not planning on T. Higgins playing this week. And so, again, for this entire matchup, it really just is the ones here. Henry in the A tier, Flowers in the C tier, Chase Brown in the A tier, and Chase in the S tier. And it's just a matter of the toughest matchup here is going to be Zay Flowers, actually, having facing the Cincinnati Bengals defense allowed the 5th least amount of points to wide receivers this year. The other matchups are either green or neutral. Start the ones in this game. Hopefully it's a higher scoring game, and you get a lot of points out of these guys from a fantasy football perspective.
So Amari and Hampton going up against the Chiefs in his first game back from injury actually only had 31% snap share, but he was pretty dang efficient with his usage. Got a little bit of receiving work as well and a receiving touchdown. Good for 14 points. And Vidal outsnapped him and outcarried him. 69% of the snap share there. Nice. 14 carries to Omar and Hampton's 13. Now, this is one of the harder running back matchups in terms of the run defense that they're going up against with Kansas City this week. And I do think this is where the scales flip, and you're going to see a majority of usage go to Hampton. At worst, a 50-50 split, more than like a 70-30 split in favor of Vidal. So we're going to go start with Amari Hampton in the B tier. He's more explosive with his usage. And Kamani Vidal is going to be a sit in the G tier. Lad McConkey, the number one wide receiver for the Chargers, had a infamously awful week last week that cost Bush the playoffs.
Darn.
And that was pretty awesome to watch, but we are going to give you the okay to start him this week. I do think he has a pretty good chance to be productive, while I don't trust Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen near as much in the G and H tier respectively. More of a neutral matchup for the receivers here. I think they could be even more productive than the running backs combined with Hampton and Vidal. So we'll see. Probably a low-scoring matchup here. All of those guys have a pretty low floor. Kansas City's running backs, Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco. Kareem Hunt's the guy there, and he gets all the goal line work. Every 3rd and 1, they give the ball to Kareem Hunt, and he converts. Every goal line carry, he converts. So F tier, he has touchdown upside every single week. I'll list him as a meh. He's not a comfortable flex option, but he's a startable flex option. Isaiah Pacheco in the I tier is a sit and a neutral matchup across the board for running backs. Rashee Rice, S tier every single week. Had a couple of drops last week that were kind of crucial. That kind of screwed his production a little bit, but expect him to be okay. Everybody beyond that is going to be a sit. G tier and I tier for Worthy and Hollywood Brown. The Chargers have allowed like the least amount of points to fantasy wide receivers of recent. So putting Rashee Rice in the S tier is a testament to how good he is. I don't think anybody beyond this is going to be super productive.
No, I don't think so. And even Rice last week had a tough game against that Houston defense. He could honestly end up struggling again. I'm kind of worried, but you still have to start him. You can't leave him out of your lineups, right?
The drops killed him. He would have been better
without the drops. That's very true. Buffalo, New England, kind of the same thing in this one. It's a tough matchup for James Cook, so he's going to be in the A tier, not the S tier for us this week. But I do feel like James Cook has, of course, touchdown upside in this game where, the Vegas lights for Buffalo especially are green in this matchup. And so I expect them to score a lot of points, and James Cook is a touchdown machine, so he's going to score. And then Khalil Shakir in the D tier as well. Ty Johnson and Keon Coleman in the I tier. We're not starting either of those guys, but we will start Cook and we will start Shakir in this game. Now for New England, we'll talk about the running backs first. It's a good matchup for these New England Patriots. The Buffalo Bills have allowed the 6th most amount of points this year to fantasy football running backs. And so with that, we're going to rank Travion Henderson in the B tier and Ramondre Stevenson in the D tier. You're looking at the last time, of course, before the bye week. You're looking at the last time these guys played. Ramondre against the Giants, another defense that gives up a lot of points to running backs. Ramondre had 11 points on 12 carries and 3 receptions. He had 3 receptions for 40 yards. And then Travion Henderson, he had also 11 points. I thought it was exactly the same. 11 carries, 67 yards, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 19 yards. And so again, and you also saw Ramondre in his first game, kind of back in that role where he gets more snap percentage than Travion Henderson. Both of them are tricky, I will say right now, but we will have Travion ahead of Ramondre just because I think Travion has higher touchdown upside and potentially more receiving upside, but knowing full well that Ramondre is going to be a meh for us this week in the D tier because I think he is going to have touchdown upside as well in this game. And then for the wide receivers here for New England, Stephon Diggs in the D tier is a start. Kayshon Boutte in the F tier is a sit for us.
Then we got Washington and the Giants, the running backs for Washington. It's not pretty, but this is a pretty good matchup for the running backs here. The Giants have an awful run defense. They've allowed the 2nd most amount of points to fantasy running backs of recent. Chris Rodriguez is going to be in the D tier here. I'll list him as a meh. He has touchdown upside, very Kareem Hunt-esque, I think, with this matchup. Jeremy McNichols and Krosky Merritt, both in the J tier, are going to be sits. Terry McLaurin for the wide receivers here. This is also a very favorable matchup for the wide receivers. Terry McLaurin actually looked the best that he's looked all season with Marcus Mariota the week before Daniels came back. Daniels has now been declared out. Now that Mariota is going to be in this game, I think they're going to be slinging it a lot. I think you could see a pretty good day from Terry. He's a great flex option in the B tier. Deebo Samuel, going to list as a meh in the D's tier. Very, very up and down and has been up and down for most of the season. I don't feel super comfortable with him. And then you got the Giants. Their running backs, Tracy and Singletary. Pretty much an even split since Scadaboo has gone down in terms of snap share. What you've seen with Tracy is actually his snap share has been a little bit higher. His snap share went down against New England, where they were down for most of that game. And then Singletary's got a decent amount of work there and much outproduced Tyron Tracy. So I don't really know what that work is going to look like against Washington. I would lean it'll probably favor Tracy, but I could just be dead wrong. It's not like they're playing for anything, the Giants here, and they could just give the ball to whoever the frick they want, whoever has the hot hand, and that could be Singletary. So they'll both be in the F tier, both be mez. I don't feel super comfortable about either of them, but don't be shocked if one of them has a really good day, because this is also a very favorable matchup going against Washington, who's allowed the 5th most amount of points to fantasy running backs of recent. Wanda Robinson, B tier, same tier as Terry. Feel great about him with Jackson Dart coming off of the bye, and Darius Slayton going to be in the F tier. He is a sit.
Las Vegas, Philadelphia is actually a very good matchup for fantasy purposes, because it's a good matchup for Ashton Genty in the B tier. He's a green matchup, and so he's really the only guy in Las Vegas you want to start outside of Brock Bowers. I think Brock Bowers you obviously start as well, but again, they're just covering running backs, wide receivers here. Genty's a start. Everybody else on the Raiders is going to be a sit. Again, we've got Genty in the B tier and a green light for him. And then for the Philly side here, also great matchup for the Philadelphia Eagles here. We kind of talked about this before the playoffs, how the entire Philadelphia Eagles offense has a really good playoff schedule, especially after Los Angeles. And so now we go to Vegas, and Saquon Barkley, great matchup for him. Green light, B tier, start for us this week. And then for the wide receivers, A.J. Brown has kind of taken back over as the most productive fantasy wide receiver there, so he's A tier. Devontae Smith is C tier. I start both of these guys this week. Again, green matchup. The Raiders have allowed the 5th most amount of points to wide receivers in fantasy football this year. And so again, kind of ideal for where you need these guys to be productive in terms of the defenses they're facing. I'm feeling pretty good about this Las Vegas Philly matchup for the fantasy playoffs this week.
Yeah, then we've got the Jets and Jacksonville. The only guy that I feel super comfortable about starting this week on the Jets side of the ball is going to be Breece Hall at running back in the C tier. Isaiah Davis behind him isn't rankable, and this is actually going to be a really tough defense to go up against Jacksonville, who's allowed the 4th least amount of points to fantasy running backs of recent, and not a lot of rushing yardage. So Breece Hall will probably need a touchdown to kind of raise his ceiling quite a bit. And also worth noting, he didn't practice today either. So we'll see what happens with Breece. He's kind of questionable. With the wide receivers, again, Adonai Mitchell had a very productive game a couple weeks ago, 24 points, and then back down to 3 points against Miami. Again, kind of got to keep our head above the waves here. This is why you don't get too excited for like guys that just pop off one week. Don't really know what's going to happen here. He's a sit in the H tier. John Mechie also in the H tier is going to be a sit. Travis Etienne going to be a start in the A tier. This is a good matchup for him. A lot of production the Jets run defense has allowed since they traded away all their best players. And Bashal Tutin behind him is going to be a sit. Etienne is really kind of he's kind of kept a grip on being the number one option there in the backfield, unquestioned. So that's really impressive for him and really good for you fantasy managers. Jacoby Myers is going to be in the B tier this week. I'll give you the okay to start him. Honestly, BCJ at this point, BCJ is a meh. BCJ had a phenomenal catch last year against the Colts. He had every opportunity to cook the Colts secondary, and he didn't. It was Jacoby Myers. Like, I don't know what world BTJ is in this year when Jacoby Myers is out producing him. Parker Washington going to be in the F tier here. He is a sit.
Going to the Arizona and Houston game now. Bam Knight in the F tier. I'm going to say meh for Bam Knight. I mean, again, Trey Benson announced out for the year, I think today. So kind of a big blow for him on a lot of fronts. Michael Carter in the A tier, I'm not really comfortable starting against this Houston defense. And Bam Knight, again, I think is a very shaky start. Michael Wilson, he is an A tier guy for us when Marvin Harrison Jr. is not playing. And so you are absolutely starting Michael Wilson this week. No questions asked. So again, it's a tough matchup for Michael Wilson. I will say it doesn't matter. They're going to throw the ball 50 times a game, and Michael Wilson's going to get 15 targets. You start him, and if he doesn't pan out, you have to start this guy no matter what. Woody Marks in the B tier. I think he's a solid start this week against an Arizona run defense that has been really bad this year. Has allowed the 4th most points to running backs this year in fantasy football. So in the B tier for Nico Collins, for Woody Marks. A tier for Nico Collins. Start both of those guys, and then Jaden Higgins in the G tier. I'm going to say Jaden Higgins is a sit for this week. I don't feel super comfortable starting Higgins on a week-to-week basis still, and so really, again, in this game, starting Michael Wilson, Woody Marks, and Nico Collins as your elite fantasy guys, and Bam Knight maybe as a flex option if you have some depth issues there.
We got Green Bay and Denver. This is another one that, like, the matchup on paper looks a lot more exciting than what probably the score is actually going to end up being because these are two really stout defenses. Josh Jacobs must start every single week. He's going to be in the A tier this week, though, because Denver's allowed the 3rd least amount of points to fantasy running backs of recent. Emmanuel Wilson behind him to sit. He's a handcuff. Christian Watson, we're going to put in the C tier. Kind of got to give him his expect because of the tear that he's been on, but I don't think this is any indication that he's like guaranteed to pop off in what is a very good pass defense for Denver. If Christian Watson doesn't get a touchdown or 2 touchdowns last week, he has 4 targets total last week to salvage his day without touchdowns. And that's just not enough for me to be like, oh, I'm so comfortable starting Christian Watson. Now, that being said, if you have to flex Christian Watson, it's not a bad flex. Like I'm not going to totally dog on the guy just because a lot of his production has come from touchdowns. I would like to see that target volume go up. I don't know what it's going to look like this week against Denver, so I'm going to list him as a meh, and then behind him, Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed are probably going to be sits this week. RJ Harvey in the B tier. This is a tough run defense in Green Bay, so we'll see what happens with Harvey. But again, since J.K. Dobbins has been injured, I mean, RJ Harvey the last couple of weeks has been really solid. So I'm okay with you starting him, flexing him. Jaleel McLaughlin's a sit behind him in the J tier. Cortland Sutton, I'll give you the green light in the C tier as well with him. Honestly, you know what, with Sutton, I'm going meh with Sutton as well. I can't rationalize putting Christian Watson as a meh and have Sutton as a start when Sutton has been less productive and less consistent of recent. He's had 17 and 12 points the last couple of weeks. Before that, he had 5 and 9 points. The touchdowns are elevating his production as well. When he gets them, when he doesn't, you are really at risk of him having single-digit productive games. So with Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin behind them, who maybe they'll have a big week any given week, and you can't really predict when that's going to happen. I have them listed as sits as well in the G and I tier.
All right, the Detroit and Los Angeles game here. I'm going to kind of keep a very conservative start-sit strategy for the playoffs here. Again, if you have a playoff team, I'm assuming you don't have to start one of these running backs. I'm going to tell you to sit. Jahmyr Gibbs in the S tier, Amon-Ra in the S tier, and Jameson Williams in the B tier for the Lions here. Really, it's a tough matchup for Gibbs in the S tier, but it's Gibbs, and he's unreal right now, and you of course wouldn't even consider not starting him. But I do think for David Montgomery, this is going to lead me to say sit. With David Montgomery, it's really like, hey, he's going to score you 12 to 15 points or 3 points. Like, that's what it is. And so against, a run defense in the Rams is like the top in the league in not allowing points to running backs. I'm not comfortable starting David Montgomery this week in the playoffs. And so I'm going to be conservative and say sit there. Again, Amon-Ra in the S tier, Jameson Williams in the B tier. I think both these guys will get plenty of work. I think the Rams offense is going to have a good day. And so I think the Detroit Lions are going to have to throw the ball. Obviously, the Detroit Lions are still, they've got to solidify their playoff spot. And so they're going to be aggressive. And I like starting both these wide receivers in this matchup. I will sit Isaac Tesla this week. He really only catches touchdowns, which is pretty funny because all of his catches are highlight catches.
Yep.
But statistically, almost all of his catches have been touchdowns this year. Going to the Rams, it's a tough matchup as well for Kyron Williams. We have him in the B tier. I'm going to say start for him. I'm going to say sit for Blake Corum, who's had 2 really good weeks, flexible weeks in fantasy football. But again, it's a tough matchup against the Detroit Lions defense, these are the second and third defenses against running backs. I'm not starting running back 2s in this game. And so I will sit Blake Corum in the G tier as well. Same place as Montgomery. In terms of the wide receivers, great matchup for these wide receivers on the Rams. Green all the way across the board. I'm lucky I'm not playing one of them in the Flock League. Puka Nacua in the S tier, Devontae Adams in the A tier. You start both of them. You don't think about it. So again, the wide receivers in this matchup, I feel a lot better about than the backup running backs, but the starting running backs are so good here. Jahmyr Gibbs and Kyron Williams, you have to start them as well. This should be a pretty fantasy-friendly matchup. Let's hope these guys don't get into a rock fight this week and they actually score some fantasy points.
Yeah, then we've got Carolina and New Orleans. Yellow lights across the board for the running backs and wide receivers for Carolina. Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard, we're going to give the nod to Rico Dowdle because we've seen it more consistently, but you did see a snap share decrease in favor of Chuba Hubbard before the bye. So Chuba Hubbard will be in the D tier here. I'm listing both of them as mez. I don't think you feel super comfortable about starting any one of these guys, but if you have to flex them, it's like, okay, there is some upside there for either one of them. Chuba, the upside is going to be with the receiving capability. Rico Dowdle, the upside is going to be with his volume. Even with 41% snap share before the bye week, he still had 18 carries, and he did out carry Chuba Hubbard there. So we'll see what happens, but with Ted McMillan, he's pretty much the only guy for Carolina that I feel very comfortable starting. He's in the B tier. Xavier Legette and Coker behind him are going to be sits in the H and I tier. Then you've got New Orleans running back situation with no Alvin Kamara. This is a green light matchup for Devin Neal, who's looked pretty decent, honestly, since he's been the number one option with Kamara out the last couple of weeks. Great snap share since the bye week, 74, 82, and 71%, 11, 9, and 15 points. Again, to me, this is very much a Kareem Hunt type of situation where if he gets a touchdown, he will have been a good flex option. If not, He's definitely not winning you a playoff week. He's probably not going to screw you because of the volume, but again, I don't know what upside really Devin Neal is going to super offer outside of the touchdowns that he's going to get. So we'll have him as a man in the D tier. Chris Olave, B tier. He's a must start every single week. And then Devon Vele, who's had a couple of productive weeks. I don't trust him quite yet. We're going to have him as a sit in the F tier.
All right, let's go to Tennessee, San Francisco here. I'm starting the San Francisco defense in a lot of my leagues this week. The only person on Tennessee I think is worth talking about is Tony Pollard. And I really, my gut wants to put him as a sit. I'm going to put him as a mad just because, and I'm not going to tell you to start him. I will say mad because it's your choice if you want to try to start Tony Pollard. You look at last week and he had 25 carries for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game against Cleveland. Not a bad defense either. So like maybe they found something with Pollard. Maybe Pollard has found something where they're just going to lean on him really heavily. But I think he's the only asset in this offense that you would feel comfortable starting if you feel comfortable at all. Again, I'm not going to tell you to start him because I actually don't think he's that good of a start. I don't think he can really be trusted. But I think he's the only guy worth even a yellow on here in terms of trusting him this week. It's not good. I really don't want to start any players on the Titans if I can help it. And then San Francisco, we'll start the starters here. We'll start Christian McCaffrey in the S tier, of course. We'll start Juwan Jennings in the C tier. Neutral matchups for both positions here. Brian Robinson in the I tier, I'm not starting. And then Ricky Pearsall in the F tier, I'm also not starting. That offense is Christian McCaffrey, Juwan Jennings, and George Kittle. And so I'm really trying to start those 3 guys in this matchup. A matchup where they're probably going to end up running the ball a lot. My guess is Christian McCaffrey has a 30-35 point game this week. We'll see about Juwan Jennings, but he's been fairly consistent over the last couple weeks in terms of his production, over 10 points per game. And then, of course, his targets have been decent as well. But those are really the only 2 guys I feel comfortable saying, hey, definitely start those guys this week in this game. And so McCaffrey and Jennings are the main ones here.
I really had to end up with the Colts in Seattle here.
Yes, you did.
So Phillip Rivers, number one, it's no guarantee that he's a starter this weekend, but it does look like it's leaning in that direction because Riley Leonard has that sprained PCL, I think. And I don't know if he's going to be a go. So let's honestly just operate under the assumption that Rivers starts. If Rivers doesn't start and it's Riley Leonard, I honestly don't know if there's that much of a difference because Riley Leonard helped Michael Pittman actually produce at a pretty decent level against Jacksonville last week, and same with Alec Pierce. But with Jonathan Taylor at running back, A tier, must start every single week. I know he's been a little bit slower. I wouldn't expect an insane game this week against Seattle from JT, so that's kind of unfortunate for you fantasy owners, but again, he's still JT. Still going to be a start every single week. For the wide receivers, we got Michael Pittman in the D's tier. I will give you the green light here, again, regardless of whether it is Phillip Rivers or Riley Leonard. Alec Pierce going to be in the F tier. He's more of a meh. I do think that if Rivers starts, I have no idea what Rivers' arm looks like. I have no idea how capable he's going to be of pushing the ball downfield, and that's a big part of Alec Pierce's game. It's definitely not going to be better than what Daniel Jones was able to do when he was healthy. So that makes me a little more iffy about Pierce. They're going to have to use him more in the intermediate area of the field, not to mention he's also questionable. He kind of got banged up at the end of Jacksonville's game, so he's more of an iffy start. Josh Downs going to be a sit. A tough passing defense matchup as well. I mean, Indy might not score a lot of points in this game. Seattle, you got Kenneth Walker in the C tier here. I do think he's kind of taken a step up over Charbonnet as the season has progressed. Charbonnet going to be in the F tier as a sit. Kenneth Walker, I'll give you the green light. Travis Etienne, Woody Marks, Kareem Hunt, you name it. Since DeForest Buckner has been on IR, that run defense has absolutely plummeted, and everybody looks like Barry Sanders going up against that run defense. So Walker's probably going to have a really good day. JSN, S tier, start every single week. Shaheed, Cooper Kupp, G and H tier, respectively, going to be sits.
Yeah, JSN is probably going to end my flock league.
He's going to annihilate them.
He's probably going to end my season.
Yeah, because there's no Travarius Ward. Travarius Ward is now out again, so no Sauce and no Travarius Ward.
I mean, it's probably going to end my flock season. He's probably going to kill me single-handedly. I'm facing defeat at this point. All right, I'm going to preface this by saying this: if you don't want to start these guys, I do not blame you. I do not blame you if you do not want to start these guys. This is the one matchup where I would say if you are ever going to start the Vikings, this is the one I would do it in. Yep. And they're going to be ranked accordingly because the Dallas Cowboys defense is bad. This is a legitimately unstartable offense against you have to start everybody against them defense. So what gives here? We're going to kind of find a middle ground. We're going to rank Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson in the C tier, and Jordan Addison in the D tier here. Very good matchup for these guys. In the last 3 weeks, Jordan Addison has had 1 double-digit game, Aaron Jones has had 0 double-digit games, and Justin Jefferson has had 0 double-digit games. I am fully aware of the production history with J.J. McCarthy here. I'm just telling you what I would do. You do not have to take this advice. Do not get mad if you start these guys and they get 0 points because it's a risk you have to take. But it is a risk I'm willing to take against this Dallas Cowboys defense. This is going to be a high-scoring game. I think this is the game where Jefferson looks good again. I think Aaron Jones is going to have a touchdown in this game. I think Jordan Addison's going to have a lot of targets. I personally am starting all three of these guys. I won't start Jordan Mason. Again, if you don't feel comfortable, don't do it. This is what I'm doing this week. Now, in terms of Dallas, no-brainers here. Javonte in the B-tier start, CeeDee Lamb in the A-tier start, George Pickens in the A-tier start. You don't start anybody else here. It's a tough matchup for CeeDee and Pickens, but a decent matchup for Javonte here. And again, this projects to be a high-scoring game. I think if you were ever going to start your Vikings again, this is the game to do it.
Yep.
Because it is a great matchup. But do keep in mind there's always the risk that they score you 5 to 7 points, of course.
Yeah, then Miami and Pittsburgh, very straightforward. Devon Achane, only startable running back there. He's a number one guy, S tier this week. If he plays, and they said that he could have come back in last week's game with that rib injury, he's a must start. Jalen Waddle for the wide receivers here, A tier. Expect him to have a good week against Pittsburgh's pass defense, which has been pretty lackluster. Nobody is a start behind him. And then for Pittsburgh, yeah, Jalen Warren in the B tier. Jalen Warren has been Jalen Warren all season. Very, very high floor and incredibly cap ceiling. He's a good flex option. Kenneth Gainwell behind him, F tier. DK Metcalf, C tier. He had a good game last week with Aaron Rodgers, C tier. I'll give you the green light to start him this week. He's the only guy available there. Adam Thielen is literally their number 2.
All right, so good luck this week. I hope you win your matchup. I hope we're going to see you here next week with the exact same video. We love you guys. Go win your fantasy leagues. Appreciate you. We'll see you soon.